What is up, everybody? I am Alex with True 90's Nickelodeon, and I am moving. I don't like this. I don't like this. We have got Rich Berry joining us today, and I'm really excited about this. Every single time I say that, but I am really excited about this. It's going to be a lot of fun. Rich is going to have a really interesting perspective from filming with, or not filming, but working with 90s Nickelodeon. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Hope you guys are doing good. Hope you guys are far more rested than I am. There is Rich. We will wait to see if he joins in, which he should be. You guys doing all right? Hi, Luke Lover. Hope everybody is doing good. It sounds really weird in here because it's so empty in here. Rich has joined. Everything is super echoey, which sounds really weird. And we should be getting Rich in just a moment. And hello there.
Hey, you have me.
What is going on, man?
How are you?
I am doing well. I'm apologizing in advance. If you've seen at all, I'm right in the middle of moving, and I can only do that at night. And I am very lacking in sleep. So if I'm yawning, it's not because I'm bored, it's because my body is wore out. So I apologize in advance if I
No
yawn.
worries.
All right,
All good.
so,
All good. I saw you were moving.
yes. All right, so everybody who is followers, we're so used to seeing actors and voice actors and creators, and
Sure.
the name Rich Berry is not something that followers are that familiar with, which is understandable because Nickelodeon hasn't really put people who've worked behind the scenes in the forefront. So you and I had connected via Facebook and some of the groups, and you had shared with me some of the
Yeah.
things that you had done, which was really cool, and I love to hear about as much of it as we can. So before we get into things that you've done, how did you get into Nickelodeon to begin with?
I graduated college and I got a job with Howard Stern over at K-Rock Radio, believe it or not. So I was working with Howard Stern and I'd done radio in college for many, many years. And then I had a cousin working at Nickelodeon. This is 1989, and she said, "There's a job opening here for a production clerk if you'd like to come over. It's kind of a cool place. We slime people sometimes. You might like it." So I left Howard Stern, believe it or not, took the job at Nickelodeon, and 27 years later, here I am.
Golly. All right, so
Yeah.
you had told me, because I wanted to know how to advertise. I asked what were some of the things that you had done, and you gave me a list. Uh, First thing was it was related to Pete and Pete, if I'm not mistaken.
Correct. So I was at that point, we're talking like 1991. So I was on the last round of the shorts, which were like, 2 to 3 minute pieces that were done on Nickelodeon, Chris Viscardi and Will McRobb. I was a production coordinator on those, handling crews and payments and everything like that. And then I was a PA, just a general production assistant on the first special, the half-hour special before it became a show. I believe it was the Valentine's Day special,
Yeah,
shot in Bayonne, New Jersey. So yeah, I was on that. That was probably one of my last gigs before I left for Nick Studios in Orlando.
that's awesome. Now,
Yeah.
how much? Well, I should say, how interactive were you with the cast and crew? Or was it something that you all did from an office, or were you actually at location?
On location for sure. I've got pictures of me and Danny when he was, little Pete, obviously, and dealing with all the different actors and Michael and the mother and father. All the names are escaping me now, of course,
Yes.
but we were on location in South Orange, New Jersey. We were in Bayonne. We were at a firehouse. We were at the football field for the school. I mean, we were kind of everywhere. It was actually the Valentine's Day special, because it was shot in like December. Was We were freezing. I remember it was just being one of the coldest shoots I'd been on because we were on the water in Bayonne, New Jersey. So very cold shoot.
Now, what were some of the challenges that you guys had faced at that time? Because I know with Pete and Pete not really hitting a series yet,
right.
What were some challenges that you guys had faced at the time?
It was the good thing for me was that it didn't exist in the long form world yet. At Nickelodeon for forever, and I'm sure it's the same with most productions or television. There's a long form and a short form, right? There's the promo guys, and then there's the guys over here that do the long shows, the double dares, et cetera, et cetera. So the crossover between those two groups doesn't happen that often, but it does. And Pete and Pete was about to cross over from the short form promotion world into the long format TV world. And so we were basically making it with a team of folks who were mostly doing promotion and shorts at that point. And I can't speak to what Will and Chris had done at that point, but they had, they were really, in my head, and the time we were working, they were doing a lot of short stuff, basically.
Okay.
So,
and something, what really got you and I talking was anybody who's followed my Instagram and seen things on Facebook was I would share a lot of the promos and things. And I think it was the first thing you had said was, oh man, I haven't seen this in years. I remember doing this. And I was going, wait a minute, you remember doing this?
Yeah.
And in the promo for this, the only thing I'd said was you had made promos for a ton of Nickelodeon shows. What were some of the shows that you did promos for?
So I basically started producing in 1992, right? So I left New York and the end of 91, early 92 to go to Orlando in the studios. And that's when I really started getting opportunities to produce. So, every promo for Clarissa, every single one from episode 1 until I don't know how many we did, 60 or something like that. Welcome Freshman Guts, Global Guts, Legends of the Hidden Temple. What else was shooting down there? I'm trying to remember. We had the vice president come down for some stuff. He did some big help pieces. We did Kids Pick the President down there. I don't know. I can't think of all the shows we were doing. It was a bunch. I did a ton.
What were some of the criteria that you had to go through? I mean, obviously you had to do a certain time frame, but was there a criteria for things they were looking for in each of the promos?
Well, the main promos team was still in New York, right? So New York was still the headquarters of Nickelodeon, and the studios were a studio, and so there wasn't a real big promo team down there. It was just me and a few other people. And so we did a lot of stuff that you could do with crowds, right? Because we had access to Universal Studios Orlando in our backyard, so it was easy. So that was the kind of the key. If they needed something with crowds or they needed something with one of the shows that was shooting down there, we would go and do it. So that's how I got Clarissa. That's how we did a lot of Nick Jr. stuff. I mean, like Allegra's Window was shooting down there, and everything else was going on. So it's funny whenever you post certain promos. To be quite frank, I mean, all that stuff went in the library down there, and then I don't know where those tapes are. They're somewhere, maybe, but I mean, there's you started posting stuff that I haven't seen in 20 years, so it was great.
Do you ever have any promos that have stuck with you all this time, and then you see it a lot later and going, oh yeah, that's exactly how I remember it? Do you have any that have stuck with you?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the stuff I did with Slime Time and everything like that is a special time. But a lot of folks still post the Snick stuff, the Snick couch, the electrified city that we did, where the electricity goes through the city and electrifies all the TVs. I mean, that was something we shot over like 3 months. We shot live action, then we shot models, then we did the graphics pass. That was such a huge project. So yeah, the Snick thing still pops up, and it's still fun to sort of see that and look back on it.
The Snick ones are a favorite, and for good reason. Those things are highly memorable. Do you have any favorite? Is that one of your favorites, or do you have some other favorites that you had done?
I don't know that this is going to sound horrible. I don't know that I remember them all. I mean,
So many.
at that, yeah, I know at that point in my career, it was just, you get an assignment, you get a brief, everyone gets a project brief, and it's like, okay, I got to do, 6 promos for the Wobulous World of Dr. Seuss. And you'd watch all the shows and you'd go, well, this isn't a very good show, but I'll have to make it look as good as I can, right? And so, I mean, occasionally the shows, there were shows that weren't that great. I remember like Space Cases not doing that well. I remember the Tomorrow People not doing that well. I mean, we had to keep an eye on, the performance of shows. So I'd get a brief and I'd make the promos, and, and then 20 years later, I see them on your feed and I'm like, oh yeah, I remember that. We had to get the kid, he had to jump through the hoop, and you remember all the details later. But I don't know that I can like say to you that I remember any favorites. I mean, working with Melissa was always great. The only issue was we shot promos every Friday at the end of 3 days of them shooting an episode, right? So I was the last guy they wanted to see. They had just finished the episode and they had like a half an hour left, and here I come onto the stage like, okay, I need to shoot a promo, and they'd be like, oh, we just want to go home. So that was the only thing I kind of remember really well. I remember shooting, you know what, here's, if I had to pick one, I remember shooting the Time Capsule Burial with Mike O'Malley and Joey from, I guess it would have been called Blossom back then.
Yeah, Joey Lawrence,
Yeah, Joey Lawrence. He came on and we buried the time capsule in front of Nick Studios, right by the Slime Geyser. I'm talking 93 or so. That I still see on the internet in places. That still pops up.
Man, that's insane.
Yeah.
Let's see. I'm looking through. That's not what I want. That was the old one. That's the one I want. Need to look through here. As far as, because you did all the promos, did you do any of the bumpers? I know somebody had asked that one.
Probably. I mean, bumps were 5 seconds or so, A and Bs. We call them A and B bumps, or entry and departures. And so they were the last thing you would do, right? Usually graphics, usually simple stuff. I know there's a lot of people that remember like a lot of the original, like late 80s animations and stuff. I didn't do a whole lot of those. Those were generally done in New York, usually by a third-party animator, and they were, at that point in Nickelodeon's life, they were pretty expensive to do that sort of thing, so they didn't make a whole ton of them. But I was there when we launched Nicktoons. I was there. Herb Scannell was standing next to me when we put, Ren and Stimpy on for the first time, and that was a big deal. And I remember when the episodes weren't coming in or showing up. I mean, I was there for the days when Ren and Stimpy episodes weren't coming in time, and then I was there for the days when iCarly episodes didn't show up in time. So I had a long span of time there. I was promos for 10 years, but then I went into the live part, and then I went to the international part. So I kind of ran the gamut there.
One of the things that I got really, really tickled at was when I was sharing things for Nick in the Afternoon, and over on Facebook, you had said, hey, I got to do this one thing, and I about lost my mind. What were, and I know Nick fans would love it too, what was some of the things that you got to do as far as Nick in the Afternoon is concerned?
You're probably talking about Stick, right?
Yes, I am.
Okay, yeah, sure. So Aggie Fodor, who, if anybody knows Stick Stickly, Aggie Fodor was the creator of Stick, and I mean, we had little stick sets all over our desks, and everybody had a little stick area, and occasionally, and not often, I'd be asked to go in and shoot some stuff with Stick. And you had to, I mean, I could do it. I can still do it to this day. It's not that difficult, but I had to puppet Stick Stickly, and I enjoyed it. You didn't do the voice live. You tracked it, and they'd come in and they'd record him later. Sorry, he wasn't real.
Yeah.
And so that, it wasn't the hardest job. And I also, in the Nickelodeon Zone, which is probably later, we're talking like early 2000s, or maybe I don't even know when that was. Maybe it was late 90s.
It was 90
Um,
that came out.
okay, so I used to do the O. We had a physical O that we would manipulate in front of a camera and use it to have O speaking. So you grab both ends of the literal O and you would puppet him to have him say his stuff. So that was the
Really?
Nickelodeon. Yeah, yeah.
Now, was that was the talking O? Was that your idea? Was that something that was passed down to you guys?
That was my boss, Kevin Weist, who doesn't live too far from me. Kevin was at Nickelodeon. He was at MTV first and then Nickelodeon for a long time. And Kevin and I were the ones who, Kevin created Nickelodeon, and then Kevin and I created Slime Time Live, along with our boss above us, Neil Sherman's, and Slime Time Live, and then You Pick Live, and then T-Nick. These were all things that we did in the early 2000s to keep Nickelodeon, to keep the ratings up on shows that didn't perform well. We did stuff in between. Basically, this was the goal.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you have, in terms of, well, both for Stick Stickly and the O, did you all have a script? Because you had just said that they didn't have the voice actor there. Did you have a script of what was
Correct.
going to be said?
Absolutely. So I would say it. I would read the script of O and manipulate him as I thought he might speak if if he was surprised or the same with Stick. If Stick was like worried, or he would, I mean, I hate to downplay it, but it wasn't that hard. It just,
No.
you would read the script and you would try to capture the characters, thoughts, and then they would go back and re-record over you. So
Yeah, I
pretty
didn't know if
straightforward.
it was I didn't know if it was a scripted thing or if they had already pre-recorded the audio and sent it. So that answers my question.
No, all scripted. Yeah, all scripted for sure.
Do you
Yep.
know if Teen Nick was inspired by MTV?
That's a good question. I have to imagine there was some MTV influence on it. It was first called Teen Nick Spin the Bottle, by the way, the first two episodes, if anybody remembers, which we shot at Universal in Hollywood. Jay Boogie was our host. He came in really early. He was terrific. And I think our first show was Nick Cannon. But I think the goal really was to just try to take advantage of the Hollywood talent pool and get more celebrities on Nickelodeon. And we tried to find the coolest way to do that, and Spin the Bottle felt like a good way to give it a shot. And then I think we got sued, or we at least got approached legally by the company that was making the Spin the Bottle thing, and they didn't want us to use that name anymore. So
Really?
it just became, yeah. So it just became Teen Nick after two episodes, and that was a lot of fun. That was big time celebrity talent, you name it. The David Spades and the Adam Sandlers, and everybody was on Teen Nick, and that was occasionally a challenge when a talent wasn't as friendly as we all might imagine they could be. So that's all I'll say.
That's all right. We don't want to bash or talk bad about anybody.
No, it's all good.
Um, Going back to some of the bumpers and promos, because I don't know if you, because you've done so much,
Sure.
did you have any hand in any of the Halloween bumpers or Nick or Treats or anything like that?
So I did produce a Nick or Treat before the big crazy one that we did with Fred. I don't know if you guys remember, but there, the basic Nick or Treat concept was you see the number on your screen, you dial, or sorry, we called kids who sent in postcards.
Yes.
And you had to answer the phone, Nick or Treat, right? It's all coming back to me. But then in '94, I was given the project, and we went to a company that did a lot of 3D animation, which there weren't many at this point, and we created a virtual neighborhood for kids to trick or treat in. And yeah, Fred hosted that and play all these characters, and we did a live Nick or Treat. I feel like it was 5 nights in a row or something like that. I don't even remember, but we probably shot 20 of them with kids who went virtual trick-or-treating down this neighborhood, basically. Yep.
Gosh.
And that
And
was like, I can't even tell you the nightmares. I mean, it all sounds like fun and games, and it is when people are playing. But let me tell you, the days and weeks, I mean, of rendering and rendering. Today my Mac
yep.
can do most of this stuff in about 6 minutes, but then they were called Silicon Graphics Incorporated. They were special computers, and we had things computing and working overtime, and it took us such a long time to get to that game. That was something. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And it's so weird that there's so much stuff. I know there's tons of stuff that we still haven't seen after all these years. Every Halloween, there's at least one or two of those Nick or Treats that are floating through. But occasionally,
Yep.
I've found about 5 or 6 others that I'll be sharing later. But that's about it. And to
Okay.
hear that there was at least there was about 20 or so, it's like, man, there's still more out there. And I hope they turn up sometime.
Well, there were 2 years of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were 2 years of it. So I don't remember how many kids played, but I mean, we did a bunch, and it was, Fred was well known and still is pretty well known. He's been around forever, and he played a goofy host, and he did a good job. And so yeah, we had a lot of fun with Nick or Treat. That was a great one. I enjoyed that one.
And we did have somebody ask if you've had any involvement with some of the game shows.
So early on, I mean, Nick or Treat would have been technically a game show if you want to look at it that way. And then there was an early version of Slime Time Live. We did Slime Time Live in 92 through 95.
Yes.
That was another game show we did with the video phone and sliming kids virtually, and blah, it was nuts. But the only involvement I would have had early on with the game shows would have been promos. So I did promos with Mike O'Malley, and for Guts, and for Global Guts, I did promos with Phil for Nick Arcade, and Phil and I still talk probably once a week. We talk to each other on Facebook all the time, and Phil's a good friend. And Phil hosted Slime Time Live too in the 90s.
Yep.
He came back, and so did Mike. Whenever a game show host was in town, we try to steal him to do Slime Time Live. I did promos for Double Dare with Mark Summers. I did other game shows. Gosh, I don't think nothing like Finders Keepers. Nothing that was shot in Philly or shot earlier. I was only in the Orlando grouping, basically.
Yeah.
Yep.
Slime Time Live. What was your involvement with Slime Time Live, and do you know what the inspiration was for Slime Time?
So
the later version, I should say.
Okay, sure. Yeah, the 90s one was Neil Sherman's, who was my boss, and we did that down in Orlando, and it was a call-in thing, and kids would call and get slimed on a video phone, or it was a stunt, if you will. The one that launched January 24th in 2000, that was the big one with Dave Azer and Jonah and Jessica, and live action sliming in Universal Studios. I was one of the creators of that, along with Kevin Weist, and then Niels was our boss, and so I was in there from day zero. I mean, we did tests, we did drawings. Byron Taylor was the designer. He did all the slimulators. We tested mixtures of slime. We tested special cameras. We had pie launching apparatus that didn't make it past the second week, but that's okay. And then 3 months in, we were asked to go from an hour to 2.5 hours, which was crazy because we had just gotten going, because it was so successful. We didn't anticipate how successful Slime Time was going to be, and they said, hey, listen, 3 to 4 is great, but we'd love you to go 4 to 6:30 every day. So we had to reinvent everything. The Slimulator was still the first hour, but then kids were playing towards the super sloppy slime off, or what is called the big shaboozy, and we had to recreate all sorts of slime dumping devices for that, and then create a lot of mini games to get kids to that final stunt. So yeah, everything in Slime Time I had my hand in, whether it was good or bad, so I take blame for both.
Now, do you have any favorite memories from doing Slime Time Live?
I got to tell you, Alex, we don't have that kind of time, but I will try to limit it if I can. Here's what I'll say. We did the world record sliming to beat the guys in Australia, and I think they got it back like the year later. But we did a great world record sliming down there in like 2003. We did a Halloween episode. No, sorry. Well, we did a Halloween episode for sure, but we did one of my favorites, crossover on April Fool's Day. On April Fool's Day of 2002, I think, or 2003, probably 2002. We had the casts of Slime Time and You Pick Live swap, and we didn't say anything to anybody. We didn't even say it on air. We just called them the same names. So Dave, Jessica, and Jonah went to New York, and we called them Brent, Candace, and I guess it was Antonio. Yes, Antonio. And then, and then the other guys went to Orlando and did Slime Time, and we didn't say a word for 4.5 hours. We just played it as the world's biggest April Fool's joke, and it was awesome, and I will always remember that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You Pick. Let's switch from Nick's Slime Time to You Pick. What was the creation of that like?
You Pick Live was created because we were looking at a show that was a similar concept that Nick UK was doing, where it might have been called like You Pick Nick or something, letting kids pick the shows. And that had come out of, if anybody remembers Henry and June, we used to have a Henry and June Friday nights. I don't know, Henry and June, it was crazy. We probably did 100 of those, of Henry and June picking the shows. But that led to the creation of You Pick, because we were going live in Orlando every day with Slime Time, and that was incredibly successful. And they just, as soon as something works at Nickelodeon, they're like, can we have more, please? And so we had a small studio in New York. It was cheaper to get the satellite time. You didn't need to. We did a direct line right to the NOC and Hotbog to broadcast it. And we shot it on a super small budget. And so suddenly we went from, 2.5 hours a day to 4.5 hours every day, and then a 2.5 hour show on the weekend. So we had You Pick Live. Slime Time would go 3 till 5. We cut about 3 to 5 maybe, and then You Pick went 5 to 7, and then on weekends, T-Nick was on Sundays from like 7 to 9, I think it was. So at one point, I had so many scripts and so many what they call wheels, because the wheel is the production, is the visual of the 2-hour block. I couldn't keep them all straight. We were doing so much TV in a week, it was hard to even read all the scripts.
Wow. Gosh, that's insane.
So that was fun. I mean, You Pick was great. All those guys were terrific. Great hosts.
All right. I've only got a couple questions left, so
okay.
If any of you followers got questions, pop them in real quick. I had asked you about Slime Time Live, or favorite memories of Slime Time Live. What are some of your favorite memories of just working with Nickelodeon in general? Anything in particular that sticks out?
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of you folks know about all the slime. Everyone knows about the slime, et cetera, et cetera. But the slime really wasn't that big early on, right? Before Kids' Choice really got big, and we're talking like late 90s when Kids' Choice really started to get huge. Slime was really it lived in Nick Takes Over Your School. That was, that's what we used to do. So we'd go to take over schools. Kids would write in, we'd pick a postcard, and we'd slime the teacher, we'd slime, the principal. And I remember those great moments of making slime at those schools. We'd have to go to the local grocery store and buy bags and bags of oatmeal and jars of applesauce and all that kind of goofy stuff to make slime. And you had to make it in a giant trash can. We'd buy an oar, like you would have them in a boat, and we'd use the oar to mix the slime. I mean, this is crazy. But those were the early days of Nickelodeon, making slime, on the run at an event. So I enjoyed all of that sort of early fun stuff about Nickelodeon. I loved just the chances they gave us to do stuff. I mean, Nick Studios, it was a playground. You had cameras, you had editing facilities, you had graphics, and they let us dumb kids run around and do stuff. It was it was, you know, a pleasure every moment of it. So I enjoyed it.
All right, and last question from me. Did you ever keep any props or any memorabilia from working at Nick?
I did. I mean, I have still to this day in the closet to my left, probably 6 or 7 boxes of things. I would do a yearly uh, whatever procedure where I would try to clean my office out, right? So you'd get things over the years, and I'd
Yeah.
keep them in my office, and then I'd go, oh my God, I gotta get rid of all this stuff. So I'd put it all in a box and I'd ship it to my house. So yeah, I mean, I have slime. I have the activator for the Slimulator from Slime Time Live. I have the prize wall sign from You Pick Live. I had props from Double Dare that I recently got rid of. I have more shirts and hats and 90s stuff in a closet that I can even. I got to clean it out, but I will. I'll get to all of it. But yeah, I have a ton. I had this Nick couch for many, many years. When I left Nickelodeon, they were very, you know, adamant about keeping it for Nickelodeon. So I did not get to keep this Nick couch, sadly.
Gosh. All
Yeah.
right. I've checked a couple of times. I don't see any other questions. We've pretty much answered all of those. So that is all that I've got. Rich, thank you so very, very much for all this. This was great fun. I really appreciate it. So thank you. And hopefully
Happy to do it.
we'll share some more promos and things that'll jog your memory even more as we progress.
Yeah, if you post them, I'll comment on them. I mean, I remember everything. I mean, I have to see it first to remember it. But
Yes. Yes.
and I'm sorry that I missed Alan Goodman. Alan was the guy who helped launch TV Land. I remember when he did the promos with us to do
Yep.
that. So I'm sorry I missed him. But yeah, I mean, it's thank you for inviting me, Alex. I appreciate it, and I'm happy to do it and chat anytime.
All right. I certainly appreciate it. Thank you, Rich, and thank you to all of you who tuned in. This will go on to IGTV later, so if you're watching this on IGTV, send us some comments. If you have some questions you'd like me to ask Rich some other time, let me know, and we'll see you guys later. Thank you again.
Okay. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye.